Nashville Design Week is a platform for bold collaborations and conversations that promote idea sharing, engage and educate the public, and strengthen our city's design culture. We shine a spotlight on designers who are shaping the city's future and facilitate critical conversation about the industry's growth and impact.
2020 has challenged us in every way. A tornado, a pandemic, and a long overdue reckoning with racial inequity. And as we close in on a formative election, we are excited to focus on the power of design to reshape communities and to actively support equity. We are proud to introduce a diverse range of speakers covering everything from racial injustice and inequity to diversity and inclusion, connectivity, and allyship, all through the lens of design.
We are fortunate to partner with design leaders who are invested in the future of Nashville's design community. These leaders see Nashville Design Week as essential and support making design discourse accessible to all. Thank you endlessly to our 2020 sponsors for helping us bring Nashville Design Week to life. Thank you to founding silver sponsor, Hastings. Hastings is a boutique architecture and interior design firm of 75 professionals who are deeply committed to the service of clients, producing award-winning, thoughtful, and impactful architecture. Thank you to silver sponsor, Watkins College of Art and O'Moore College of Architecture and Design at Belmont University. The Watkins College of Art and the O'Moore College of Architecture and Design celebrate the power of art and design to transform people, communities, cultures, and the world. Thank you to our copper sponsors, Elevated Outcomes, Interface, Smith G Studio, and Textures Nashville. Thank you to our bronze sponsors, Aberdeen Studio, Alfred Williams & Company, Circa Creative Studios, Dade, EOA Architects, Earl Swenson Associates, and Manuel Zeitlin Architects.
And thank you to our media partners, Dezeen, Lightning 100, and Nashville Interiors, and to creative directors Lindsay and Alan Lassiter.
Nashville Design Week is proud to be a fiscally sponsored project of the Arts and Business Council of Greater Nashville, a nonprofit organization. Nashville Design Week is an entirely volunteer effort made possible by the tireless dedication of our team. Now, let's get started.
Hi everyone, my name is Macy Harville. I'm a volunteer program coordinator for Nashville Design Week 2020. On behalf of the Nashville Design Week team, I'd like to welcome you to Designing Out Inequality. The hosts for today's program are Centric Architecture and Bonavie's Urban Development. Centric Architecture is a local Nashville architecture firm specializing in design, preservation, and development. Their work is a healthy blend of historic preservation and new, innovative design, which have bled together into creative, adaptive reuse projects around town. Bonavie's Urban Development is a social impact developer who believes in community preservation and equitable development. They address socioeconomic and racial inequalities through real estate and community development to offer better strategies for developing our built environment. Make sure to check out the Handouts tab to access the QR code for the virtual art show. Exhibits include Omari Booker's Need a Hug at the local distro, Marlos Yvonne's studio at the Magruder Center, and Alex Lockwood's studio at Elephant Gallery. We thank you for being a part of Nashville Design Week 2020, and with that, I'll turn it over to our hosts.
How you doing? I'm Derek Moore-Cohen of Slim Husky Pizza for Real. Thing about North Nashville, man, it's a beautiful place. I love it. It's got a lot of culture. It's got its own identity. It speaks to the heart of African Americans And the reason why we chose to come over here is because we've always felt like we've always want to be a part of the change that's coming. Yeah, man, it's a beautiful street. Oh.
General Manager at Willie B's Kitchen and Lounge in Nashville, Tennessee. We are so excited to be the newest space here in the Buchanan Arts District in North Nashville. We offer Creole seafood, wonderful daiquiris, excellent signature drinks, and a wonderful outdoor patio space as well. So we do hope you come by. We're just so excited to be a part of the neighborhood. Come see us soon.
Hey, my name is Skylar Anderson, and I'm Will Anderson, and we run Mapleville Incorporated. We're a 501c3 nonprofit. We do commercial woodworking as a means of creating a context for mentorship with young people here in North Nashville. We've been in this location for 5 years, but we've been involved in North Nashville since 2012. Started as a skateboard manufacturing business, and now we do basically anything we can make out of wood. We're excited to see the growth in the neighborhood as it pertains to people coming and investing here. We love our neighborhood, and anybody that wants to come and invest in the people, we're excited to have you.
My name is Edna Davenport. I'm the proud owner of Duchess Salon Studios. We started this project in 2018. We finished in 2020. We have stylists, we have estheticians, we have nail technicians, we have barbers. In fact, I've had a couple of white people to come in and they want to know, well, do you all do white hair? We do all types of hair. Short hair, long hair, natural hair, blonde hair, doesn't matter. So that's been my biggest challenge, is trying to get the community to come in and take a look. I don't know if they're afraid or what it is, but that's what my goal is to have all types of people to come in.
My name's Alex Lockwood. I'm the owner of Elephant Gallery and Studios. I run an art gallery and have a number of artists who work here in the building. I've been in North Nashville since 2014, and there's nowhere else in town I'd rather be.
Hello, I'm Stinky with I Saw the Sign, and we're a sign painting company here in North Nashville. And we are super honored and excited to be a part of this community, and we've been here for a couple years now and just love it.
Hi, my name's Jonathan Norman. I'm the owner at Bud's Hardware and Key Shop. My grandfather was actually Bud. He started the business in 1960, so we've been in the neighborhood for 60 years. We love North Nashville. We love serving the neighbors.
My name is Anthony Williams. I will be the new owner of Ed's Fish and Pizza come next year. I'm a third generation family member. Our business has been here since 1972, and my brother and I, we look forward to serving the community for many more years to come.
How are you guys doing today? My name is Don Harden. My business is Don Harden Group. I'm a native Nashvilleian, actually. Finished college here and then moved away for about 10 years and moved back. And I've done business for 20 years now as Don Harden Group around the city, many projects in and out and around the city. And North Nashville has always been dear to my heart. I've always paid attention to North Nashville, Buchanan Street in particular. I loved some of the things that young ladies like Kelly Bonadies was trying to do, and tried to find a way to be on Buchanan Street. We looked at a couple other buildings a long time ago. So now I think that with Kelly and Bert Matthews and Gina Emanuel and the Centric team, their wonderful architecture firm, joining the ranks of them on this development, they sat me down and explained what they were doing with this facility, this building. It was an old little scholars building. I got excited about the idea, and I shared with my team of young project engineers, project managers coming up of the idea of being here. It's exciting to be able to work on a project like this where we're going to transform this building into a wonderful place with a lot of artistic styles to it, touches to it, and a place we can walk right out of our door and be on the street in the heartbeat of North Nashville. So we're excited about that.
I'm Deidre Nicole. I'm with Gideon's Army. I'm a native to the North Nashville community, and I'm here. That's the best thing about the job that I have now, working with Gideon's Army. I'm well deep in with the community, even though I was raised here. I was born and raised here. I was here my whole childhood, and now I'm a member of this community. I live here also, raising my family. I think it's best that I know the store owners, I know some of the developers, and the community members is what's mostly important. They basically just want you to build a relationship with them. It don't matter if they stand on the street corner or if you can go to their porch and talk to them at their house. They just want the relationship, and I call it love. Building off love. The biggest challenge for me is not being able to help every single person that we come across that need the support. And the greatest need is capital. We always need more money, we always need more resources because the people are really in need. I think North Nashville has something special that you can't find in other places, and that's why me and my family are still here. We are keeping our hope, we're keeping our faith, we're keeping our love and our belief right in the North Nashville community, because it's like once you meet a store owner, once you meet a bus driver, once you meet a community member, no matter if they homeless or not, you become family instantly, and they look out for one another. They help you when there's a problem. Even if Metro come bothering you, a community member will speak up and ask, hey, are you okay? So I think North Nashville is the glue to the city of Nashville. And I love it here. I don't plan on leaving.
That's perfect.
I don't plan on leaving.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. My name is Quayla, and I lived in North Nashville for 10 years.
And how old are you?
And I'm 10 years old.
So your whole life?
Yes.
So what's your name?
Kalia.
And how long have you lived in North Nashville?
10 years.
10 years? So what would you girls like to see more of in your neighborhood?
In my neighborhood, I would want to see like more people appreciate each other than killing each other and stuff like that. And Yeah, and I would want, like, in my neighborhood, I want, I want another library in my neighborhood because the other one is closed. And in my neighborhood, I want it to be full of cotton candy.
Amazing. What I want more is chips and candy.
Just access to chips and candy.
Hey everybody, welcome to our discussion on designing out inequality. Thank you for taking the time to tune in. I'm Kelly Bonadies.
I'm Gina Emanuel. Thank you Nashville Design Week for facilitating this forum, and most importantly, thank you to all of our panelists for being here. For those of you watching, we're going to leave some time for questions at the end, so feel free to put those in the chat.
I just wanted to give a little backstory on the title. I think as some of you may know, there was a pretty startling report back in 2018 that our zip code 37208 had the highest incarceration rate in the entire country. So here in Nashville, we assembled a committee to address the root causes of why this was the case. I wasn't a part of the committee, but I did sit in the back and heard at-large council member Sharon Hurt repeatedly say that inequality was by design. So I just sat there and really couldn't help but think there must be a way out, and really the only way would be through design as well.
Inequality is driven by these vicious cycles, which are fueled by lack of security, stability, inspiration, and opportunity within our built environment. These panelists today are at the forefront working to break these cycles and provide what is needed moving forward.
So without further ado, I wanted to introduce our panelists today. Here with us, thank you so much you guys for coming, is Rashidat Fatuga, founder of grassroots community organization Gideon's Army.
Alicia Haddock, the director of the Magruder Family Resource Center.
Jeff Magruder, a community banker with historic ties to North Nashville. And Bert Matthews,
who is unable to join us today, unfortunately. Yeah.
So I wanted to start with Rashidat. I just coming off of the video that everybody was able to see, and really the last words coming from the children, something that you work closer than anybody with are the children in 37208. So what, in your opinion, do our children face living in the zip code 37208?
Children in 37208 really face a lot of hardships due to the inequities in that community, the lack of social determinants of health from school system, environmental health, lack of access to health care. And then, at least prior to Gideon's Army being in the North Nashville community, just even a need for more mentors, an increase in violence and crime, which also means an increase in trauma and things that they have to deal with that maybe other children in other communities don't have to deal with or face.
That's awesome. So I wanted to bring up, before we go on to the next question, I'm sure a lot of people that are watching may have seen this viral video, and if you haven't, definitely check it out. There's a viral video of a young man in tears of joy over graduating high school. He attributed his accomplishment to you and to Gideon's Army. What did it take to help Dontrell Spencer graduate high school?
Well, Dontrell, he has always been just a very, all of our children are just really good kids, but our children oftentimes go to schools that aren't designed for them to succeed. And I will say Pearl Cone really put everything into Dontrell that they possibly could. So it was wonderful working with the school as well. But, schools are expected to do and be absolutely everything for our children. Teachers
And I'm a former teacher, so I'm speaking from the inside, I'm speaking as a parent, and I'm speaking as an advocate and an activist from the outside. But, you know, teachers are expected to be nurses, to be parents, to be social workers, all of these things. And really, they need support, community support. And so offering Dontrell mentorship, tutors, home visits, you know, just whatever kind of support, traditional and non-traditional, that he needed, but also focusing on his whole family, from his mother to his brothers, just making sure they had what they needed. But it also included advocating for him. You know, even the change in the school policy manual, making our policies more restorative in nature, all the way down to how those policies are implemented on the school level, and advocating for him on a personal level to make sure that he stayed in school was also really important.
That's awesome. And I do want to say, you know, definitely anybody that hasn't heard of, I'm sure everybody has, but if you haven't heard of Gideon's Army, please check it out. They are the only organization working to eliminate the root causes of the school to prison pipeline in North Nashville. They provide, as you can see, unparalleled stability to families, creating pathways to future opportunities, which is really important to bring up as we go further down the panel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alicia, for you, you know, we gave your title earlier, but I don't think that could ever really encompass everything you do on a daily basis. You know, you've done so much with Catholic Charities and Magruder, with workforce development, and then with the tornado, you're really front and center in making sure people were getting what they needed, and still now with COVID and all the other things that are coming up. In all of this, what's been the most inspiring thing you've had, and then conversely, what's really been the biggest challenge?
Well, I would say, you know, doing the work in North Nashville, the most inspiring thing to me has been the determination, the grit, and the stick-to-itness of the community, but also the community partners. So we have a lot of organizations that are determined to see North Nashville come out on the other side, right, of positive community engagement, and making sure that opportunities are available to community members. And so that inspires me every day when people come to the doors at Magruder and they're not giving up. It's almost like the fight starts over every day. Just because, you know, the community members wake up and they're ready to go at it one more time. The organizations keep at it each day. So that keeps us engaged, making sure that, you know, everybody has an opportunity to fulfill their dreams and also get what they need and what they deserve. I guess the most challenging aspect of this work could possibly be, number one, having access to funding. We know what we need. So when you work with the community and the community allows you to work with them, you have a keen sense of what should be next, you know, or what is lacking or what we need. So I think having access to capital, access to funding, making sure that, you know, what we write on paper programmatically happens in real time. So that probably is one of the most challenging things. And then also convincing people that you can be a part of this work, no matter your background, what your skill is. So if you are an architect, you have a place in this work. If you're a developer, you have a place. If you are a community advocate, or you have I always consider myself as having a big mouth, right? And I know my panelist, Rashida, you got one too. So yes. And so use that for good, right? Right? So like our skills and the gifts that we've been given, you have an opportunity to participate in this work and use them. And it doesn't have to look like the same skill as those, you know, that you may see in front of you, right? You bring what you have. And so convincing people that they have what it takes to participate in this work, that's probably second to capital and funding.
I think that's an excellent point. It really goes to the purpose of the panel and something we wanted to bring up about different people's value adds and how it can seem like they can be incongruent at times or not fitting together, but that's really where like the special sauce is, and being able to like find people that do completely different things and may not all agree exactly of how to take it on, but they'll sit there in the room and figure it out.
That's right.
So being that these issues are essentially twofold, and one being retaining the residents and providing stability, like an organization like Gideon's Army or Magruder Family Resources, and then they are able to essentially triage and deliver to somebody like Jeff Magruder, who will provide the opportunities and more in the financial sector. So it totally one can't do both of those tasks efficiently. So moving on to Jeff Magruder, he's a third generation community leader working to increase knowledge, equity, and wealth in the Black community. He's leading revitalization and resurgence of Nashville's only Black-owned bank, and I'd like you to actually tell us the big news with that about your transition.
Yeah, thank you, Kelly, and thanks for having me. And it's been an joy working with everyone in this room. These two ladies here, we've had intimate times just doing things behind the scenes, and we don't want any credit. This is what God put us here to do. So as far as the bank, today I am announcing that I will be transitioning from Pinnacle Bank to Citizens Bank here in North Nashville, a bank that I grew up going to as a kid. My mother worked there when I was 5 when we lived on Jefferson Street. So it's a true homegoing story. I will be the Chief Relationship Officer on the executive team, building community, building the foundation for the bank to participate in economic growth in this market. Our goal will be to be the best community bank in 37208.
Yay! That's a huge deal.
It should be fun. A lot of fun coming.
That's so exciting.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, great. And I think some of these questions that we may have next are a little bit for all of you. Like we said, everybody's going to bring something different, so we thought it would be a great discussion to have all of you participate. You saw the kids in the video. I think you guys got to see it beforehand and sort of what they wanted to see in the neighborhood. You got some really different responses there, from like candy and chips to some really like hard things. So they don't want to see violence and they want to see people working together. But if you had to pick one thing that you'd prioritize as first, either on Buchanan Street or in North Nashville in general, what would you say that was?
I would, the video really, and the two young ladies that were at the end, it wrapped up and kind of summed up, North Nashville perfectly. Because I took it to say, and they may not know what this word even is, but it's collaboration, right? More people working together. And so if 10-year-olds can see this, right, then I think it's time for everybody else to get on board. Working together, understanding very clearly that we can't do this thing alone, right? We have our strengths, but I need Jeff and his skills and what he brings to the table just as much as Rashida at Gideon's Army and what we do at Magruder. Like, collaboration is key. It helps us play off each other's strengths, and it will push us forward in the long run. Because I think what we kind of make a mistake in doing is thinking that we can be everything to everybody, and we can't even do that in our personal lives. So we definitely can't do it in the community. But also, they were asking for, at the end of the video, more resources, right? It looks like they're trying to find a store to buy some candy, right? And so if that is the case, then that means that those resources are lacking. They can't find a safe space, right, or a safe place in walking distance to buy the things that they want. And I would say that their parents feel the same way as well, because I do when I kind of navigate North Nashville. And so we're getting better, but I think those are the things. I think the young lady summed it up well. Just making sure that resources are available and more collaboration so we can bring the community what it needs.
When I think about it, just staying in the financial realm of it, and because I would love to go to education and collaboration too, but just staying in the financial piece, one of the things that's North Nashville suffered from is really the economics were sucked out of here when the interstate, of course, was pushed through here, and of course regulatory standards that were approved federally, like redlining of properties and keeping values down, really took a lot of the commerce out of the community. And so our job will be to circulate the dollar in the community, where we support businesses that are being started in this community, and also the staff that they bring in, giving them a place to cash their checks and also to get mortgages to be able to buy homes here. And so, the bank's role is to circulate the dollar in the community to build wealth so that people can afford opportunities to give and opportunities to eat out and attend things right here locally. And so the bank plays a big part in circulating the dollar and also growing people's wealth and financial status in the community, not just from the outside.
So what I hear is resources, collaboration, economic development, economic advancement, definitely those two. And then I would add, if we were to have a list of 3 to 4 things, I would add true transformative justice. And if we have resources, collaboration, economic advancement, and justice that transforms the community, justice that is restorative, that focuses on healing those who've been harmed and rehabilitating those who've caused harm, bringing everyone together to address how do we recreate a sense of safety, or create for the first time a sense of safety in the community together. I really think that we would have a pretty comprehensive plan for North Nashville. When you look at, because one of the young people talked about just wanting a peaceful community, and when you look at peace and the elimination of violence within communities, you have primary, secondary, and tertiary prevention strategies, and those are all a part of that. It's all a cycle where violence impacts all other social determinants of health, but not having those social determinants of health within a community also create that violence. And so, if we're talking about 37208 having the highest incarceration rates, well, those of us here may have read the story and understand, or read the reports. I won't go into it, but we need to look at the policies, the laws that create these conditions that are pushing people, especially from the North Nashville community, into the justice system. And what can we do? Thinking outside the box, no longer doing things the way that we always do it, because I think, as Einstein says, insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. And that's what typically happens in North Nashville, especially with our leadership, our government leadership, is they continue to do the same thing. But we really need to reframe the way that we look at harm, the way that we look at crime and violence as a public health issue, so that we are bringing resources, we are looking at economic advancement, and we're looking at justice that transforms and restores the community.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's great.
Thank you so much. And I know you did touch on how we got into how we got segregated by design and unequal, and that's not something that we really talked about too much today, but they do have an event tomorrow that's specifically focused on, maybe it would have been nice if it was right before ours, so that we're the lead out. But
I think it may be this evening, actually.
Oh, really?
It's a screening if everybody wants to see that.
So they did a film based on the book Color of Law, and it is, the title of the talk is Segregated by Design. So it goes heavily into the redlining and the different type of segregation, all the effects that has. So I definitely recommend everybody to check that out. I wanted to kind of roll back as well and really focus on the idea that it is twofold of what we need to do to be able to not just provide people with opportunities, but figure out how we bring in economic improvement, which is inevitably increases property values and retain the residents so that all these programming that we are planning and offering are able to be offered to the current residents. So I know this is a really difficult question, but I think that we're all making progress in the affordable housing space. And so I just wanted to see, with all the different areas that you guys support and lead, how can we make area improvements for existing and longtime residents while mitigating displacement and retaining affordability?
Can I touch on that first? I mean, I would love to touch on that because I'm always the person that's in the middle of these conversations with developers in the nonprofit space and the bank. So, and as a person that's heard the conversations from both sides, each side has an argument to earning and to having a safe place to live and not being displaced. And so the key to it is identifying it and having a group that's united and holding the developers accountable to what they build. I mean, because, it's one thing to allow developers to come in and build, but when the developer knows, like, this is a different market, this is a different space, there's respect to be earned here. I need to know Rashida, I need to know Alicia, I need to know Jeff, I need to ask them how I can do this and bring the community together. And so we have examples all up and down the street of how that's been done, but it's not being marketed correctly. I think we are doing it now. I think we're starting to come together, but we need to get loud. And so when things come out of the ground, we've already had the conversations about how this is coming out of the ground, what resources are coming to it, and how it's going to come back to the community. And so we're on our way, but we have to really step it up and really get a plan, like written plan, like a 10-year model of what this looks like. And I know there's some thoughts around what that looks like. I plan to be at the table, hopefully, along with everyone else. But, phone calls need to be made. If someone steps over bounds, we got to call them out and say, no, that's not going to happen here. Yeah.
So I know Rashida, Gideon's Army has looked into, and along with the Magruder Center, pretty heavily in how to get into the affordable housing space and how to create something that is safe and affordable. And I know that can be tricky because there's a lot of affordability remaining, but it's really in sometimes deplorable conditions, which can affect children as well. So what have you guys addressed with that and would like and hope to do with your organizations?
That's a loaded question. Okay, so I would have to go back a little bit and actually talk about gentrification in North Nashville and why there's a lack of affordability, and the fact that every time our city council tries to do something to prevent gentrification in North Nashville, that, our state government preempts anything. And so it's made it really hard for us to protect that community, which is also why it's very important to understand the local politics of things in voting and not just focusing on presidential elections, because these things matter, like all the way down to the fact that we can almost no longer afford for ourselves to live in the North Nashville community, which makes us look outside of our community or to, try to figure out how to fund and finance projects that are maybe a little bit more innovative and creative than we normally would. Gideon's Army is new to affordable housing, and so I really don't feel that I can speak to that just as an expert right now, but, just really trying and working to help people find housing and stay in North Nashville has been really, really hard. And I think the biggest thing that North Nashvillians have had to lean on is the fact that there are a lot of group homes in North Nashville where people share and rent rooms. But as far as, just the city working towards affordability, it feels like a lot of models that are being used and explored are a bit antiquated, or if we're looking at things like even mixed use developments, which is really popular in Nashville, a lot of them will still end up disenfranchising the people who live here because the amount of time that affordable units, are available. Like if it's if it's under 30, 40 years, you know, what is the point of having something affordable for 10 years? It goes by like that. And so I think that there hasn't been a full commitment to affordability and affordable housing in Nashville. And the little commitment that's been shown, there's an even bigger lack of commitment by the state.
You're right. And so, you know, North Nashville being the epicenter of the African American community, the Black community, that means that it has a lot of diversity. So you can't put everybody in the same box. So some programs that have been created work really well for some folk and some do not. And that is where we find inequity, and where it's affordable for some, but not for everyone, right? And when I look at it, or I think about affordable housing, because we're kind of new to that space as well, with the exception of Catholic Charities having a homelessness prevention program that has prevented, you know, hundreds of people from becoming unhoused and even displaced. But for the past couple of years in North Nashville, I feel like we've been hemorrhaging community members. And we're not losing them to East Nashville and West Nashville and South Nashville. We are moving community members to other counties. And we're uprooting community members, and we're placing them and kind of having no other option but sending them into new and foreign, if you will, spaces. So then that means the work here that we must do must include collaboration, but be very intentional about keeping community members that want to be here. So forced displacement is an issue. You know, we are currently working on a new housing or home ownership program that was essentially birthed after the tornado, because we knew hypergentrification was coming. So if we know it's coming, then we have a duty or an obligation to work to stop it, to slow it down, to kind of speed up the work that we've already been doing and create new opportunities for people to not only just rent on your block, but own your block. So that means that we have to look at how credit is determined for certain individuals in our community, and then also other contributions that our community members make. So all of your credit may not be in your score, it may be what you give back to the community, right? And that may have to be what works, because that may be what keeps you out of one program, but will help you thrive in another. So really kind of looking at what does it look like to be invested in the community, and not what we typically would think it should be. So being very creative in how we increase participation in home ownership and community engagement, and making sure people have an opportunity to stay where they live, and to also thrive, right? So, and be successful. And that includes justice, that includes access to financial resources and opportunities. And so I think it deserves more attention than what we've been giving it. And as Jeff said, making it more formal, making a riff or speaking out more clearly and more loudly about things that aren't working, and then proposing ideas that we know will work.
And I think this next question I'm going to ask is going to touch on a lot of what you guys have just said, because I think it's really great, everything that you've kind of said, and I think a lot of things we've all been wondering your thoughts. And one of the things you mentioned about affordable housing, with our Barnes Fund, I'm on that commission, and we review all the applications, and you see how hard everyone's working, how hard they have to work to make it happen, and all the challenges they're facing, and they really do have to get creative. Like you guys have said multiple times, you can't just do it the same old way, because it won't work, and it's still difficult, and they're not really making a big dent. They're doing great work, but there's a big need, and so what they're doing is not going to fill everything. So this is something we were going to ask to Burt Matthews, since he was here and is working on some developments, but I think it would be a great question for all of you. You said you really want to make sure it's loud and tell people this is what we want and this is what we need. If someone is coming over here to do a development and wants to do something equitably, a couple things. One, why aren't more people doing it? I think is the big question. And two, what would you say to them and how would you engage with them to make sure that it happened the right way?
I'll start. I think initially coming here, if you're looking to build affordable housing or workforce housing or just market housing, it's really contacting the community leaders and finding out where they are. And so it goes back to the whole approach of us having a united front of who we are in 37208. And I think it is kind of spread out. There's several groups leading the charge, but the tornado brought us all together. We can identify the ones that were really working hard, but being able to activate that group, right? And that group has come together to put a plan out, and that plan is affordable housing says this, and if you do something here, we will want this in the plan, and the councilman, rubber stamps that, and it's law. And so when you come here, it's like, well, if I'm gonna build over here, this is what the community wants. They've asked for it, they've planned for it, and they've sized it up, and this is the cost. How am I gonna make money? Well, I can make money because I'm gonna build something dense. I'm gonna build commerce around it, and it's gonna be a place that everyone can stay. There's a way to do it, but it's not the easiest way. And so a lot of folks wanna just come and slash and burn and do something quick so they can get out of it. But the work is in the details and getting the community involved in what you want and having the plan stamped by everybody. And so that's what we have to do. And whoever's looking at coming in, if they're thoughtful about that, they will make the acquisition. And I think there's been evidence of people willing to do that because they understand the importance of the Black history remaining in 37208 as it goes through gentrification. And it's going to happen, but I think it's going to be diverse and it's going to be done differently than any place else in the state. Mm-hmm. I see it.
I agree. I think, if we're going to do this, then, and developers, find their place and be very intentional about the work that is happening. Number one, that has already happened, but then looking at the end goal of making some kind of impact in a community like North Nashville, right? So it's not a one size fits all. North Nashville I think, is so unique and so different from any other place ever, right? I've only lived in North Nashville, but this is my community and I know how unique it is. But I also understand that if a developer is coming in and they have no intention with engaging with the leaders, no intention of transparently engaging with the community, then there will be a problem, right? It won't be the type of development, number one, that the developer expects, because you're gonna get what you get, but it won't be fruitful if you don't intentionally engage. But if you have an end goal of making an impact so the community can be better or will be better because you're here, and the community allows you to come in and to engage, then that's something you'll reap the benefits for years to come. You will leave a legacy where you have engaged and people have accepted you, right? And accepted your presence, and you will be able to take that with you, and nobody will be able to take that from you. And I'm speaking on the developer's behalf. So I think because most of us, create a space in North Nashville where we want our community members to thrive, that doesn't go away because the developer comes in. If you want to have intentional and impactful projects and work in places like North Nashville, you have to go along with what's happening already. Trying to do it with the exception of that probably won't work out well.
Great points. I don't trust developers in general. And so my answer would really be, I prefer pretty much most developers to just not come into the North Nashville community, to be honest, because I have seen, like, there are very few people who do it well. And then there are those who think they do it well, but they're still planning on behalf of the North Nashville community. And so I think the best strategy really is, you know, for people to come in and just write checks. Just write checks, invest in community organizations that are doing this work. For example, Gideon's Army bought a store. 37208 Market and Cafe is the new name of the store. And it was a deep concern of the community that when the store, you know, went up for sale, that it would be bought by a developer, because that means being moved out. That means having something that nobody wants in the community, you know. And so if somebody were to be looking, and even next door, there's land and it's owned by a developer, somebody out of New York who is unnamed, and we have no idea what's going to go there. And so if people are equity minded, then investing in organizations and putting the power in the hands of the people to develop and create what they want in the neighborhood, and figuring out different investment models that work to help people be self-empowered within the communities, I think would be more impactful than coming in and saying what the community actually wants and needs, because that only helps us as consumers. It doesn't help us to advance. If we're looking at economic advancement in the community, coming in and saying, oh, I'm going to put some Black businesses in this space, or, you know, that's still really not enough, because that is still the developer identifying what they think is best and leaving Black people in the community only being consumers, when really, if we had the resources that we needed, we would be able to build and to do these projects on our own. But because of the history of North Nashville, people in North Nashville cannot easily do that, or can't even hardly do it. Hardly being the opposite of easily. So,
or sometimes not even know that it's possible.
Right. Not know that it's possible, not know how, not have the resources to be able to do it. You know, if it were not for Jeff and Urban Campus Corps, Gideon's Army, we probably wouldn't have the store, you know, because he comes with a set of resources and knowledge that we don't have. But there are also people who invested in making that happen when Gideon's Army didn't have the funding to do it. And so, you know, looking at creative investment opportunities for the organizations that are doing the work, for the organizations, you know, that are working to be more in affordable housing or in social entrepreneurship, like that is where it becomes meaningful. But coming in and giving a Band-Aid, or, you know, just this nice pat on the back with some Black businesses put in spaces that still don't belong to us, it really just is meaningless.
Yeah.
You know, I think you raise a good point, just because of our entrepreneurship classes that we have at Magruder. And we have trained close to 200 with our partner Corner to Corner and Pathway Women's Business Center. We have trained close to 200 Black entrepreneurs in Nashville, right? And so it's thriving. And so for them to have an opportunity to have a space in North Nashville, it's the chances are kind of slim, right? Because of the cost and because of access to capital. And so I think, you know, if we don't change not only the narrative, what we are saying that we want and we need and what has been happening, but also work towards owning more spaces, work towards creating opportunities for people to provide their skills and their talents to the people of North Nashville, then it will be detrimental even more detrimental to the community, communities like North Nashville. So we have to create more opportunities for us to own spaces, but also be keenly aware that there are some folk that have resources that, if done rightly, then maybe we can work together. But I really don't know if having developers pour in is the right thing, right? So we're not advocating that, but making sure that there's a balance to everything that's happening.
Let me tag on that real quick. I won't be long. The assets that we're talking about is a culture shift. We're talking about making the culture of coming to North Nashville and being in or external, this is the way you move here. And so we're shifting the culture of people's expectation on how they can get things out of the ground here. And so the community is learning. They're learning entrepreneurship and real estate development and how to buy their first home all together. And so this does not happen overnight. You know, we've been at this at least 10 years, coming back and doing a lot, me personally, coming home and doing a lot in my community, and it's moving. We just have to speed the process up before the folks who are not listening come in and try. And so that education is getting around, and more people are learning they can do with what they have, with groups like this here. And so it's happening.
Yes, definitely. Mm-hmm. And I definitely appreciate all of you guys for being, I know 2020 has been 2020, and it's really, sometimes people really get bogged down in losing hope and sight of like what can we actually do, especially under all the circumstances. And I really feel like you all are a silver lining in showing how you can work together. And it's not, and I'm not sure, or I'm sure that you guys all haven't agreed when you're, you know, especially with Jeff, he can be kind of combative. I'm just kidding.
That's just me and Kelly.
But that's what's
that's me and Kelly. We go back and forth all the time. So.
It's so important, though. You know, it's so important because he comes from a different background than some of us, and having somebody in a banking perspective and really like still being able to help fulfill the need and provide the knowledge and the skills, because that's so important, and being for the community to be able to see. Like it's really hard to be what you can't see, and I feel like that's huge for the kids. Like they can't, most of them, they get to a point where they have nothing to lose, or they can't imagine what they've never seen before. So to have people that look like them own property, own businesses, they can work with those businesses and have upward mobility within those businesses. That's just like bottom line what needs to happen. So and I think hopefully if people didn't get the point, if you are coming to North Nashville and you haven't talked with somebody up on the stage, then you need to turn around and leave if you're wanting to invest here, because it'll be better for your investment and you'll get more out of it. Just like Alicia said, I've personally been there, and I feel like the more that we sit down and work together, the more we can create practical applications for developers to be able to see what's possible over here and what's necessary. So thank you guys. Yes. And this is just the beginning.
Just the beginning.
Yeah. If you guys have a few more minutes, I think people probably want to ask you some questions on the chat, if you don't mind. So I'm going to remind everybody, if you do have any questions, put them in there. We've got a couple in here that we're going to ask.
Did you have any questions for each other while we're waiting?
These are my sisters.
Right. We kind of talk.
We talk all the time, so we good.
Did you want to go ahead with that one?
This one, yeah. I think you guys have touched on this quite a bit, but I'm going to ask it, and you can see if there's something else. Somebody asked, one thing I hear a lot about is how quickly gentrification happens in many neighborhoods. If this is something y'all expect, what are some strategies a unified community could use to regulate the rate of change?
At this point of where we are I really don't know. I feel like we've kind of tried everything. We would have to campaign and agitate on a state level in order for us to have any kind of change. Because like I said before, anything we try to do on a local level is preempted by the state. So it would definitely take agitation on a state level for us to be able to really do anything, I think, in North Nashville as far as gentrification. And then the other part would be pooling our money together, figuring out creative ways to purchase whatever property we can find. You know, it gets gone fast. Even I've been to a few auctions, even in the auctions, foreclosures, those houses are expensive and somewhat overpriced.
There's no deals.
Yeah.
There's no deals.
No.
There's no deals.
Mm-mm.
I got a question. You know, back to the person that maybe asked the gentrification. I always wonder, because my dream, and it's past me, but I think the next generation of graduates from TSU Fisk-Meharry, do you call it gentrification in a black neighborhood that's been blighted by the government for 100 years, and middle-class black families move here and buy houses and the property values will still go up? Is that gentrification?
I don't understand that.
Is that gentrification? Is it gentrification with young black families move back to North Nashville and buy homes and commerce and things go up? Is that gentrification?
No,
so you're talking about more
different.
No, that's what I'm saying.
No.
It's a question. I don't know the answer because you hear it thrown out. But one thing I would like to see is young black families, young singles move to North Nashville and improve the community as middle-class citizens. And so that is a goal of mine at the bank, is to really be a part of that recruiting of those graduates to stay here and buy and move here. But the houses are what they are because those are market prices. And so this is a question. I don't have the answer, but it's something that needs to be discussed because the marketing to those kids is very important, because at one point in time, those were middle-class families in the 60s that built here and started families and did K through 4th. And so those are big things to kind of discuss as well.
But you know, and that's a good point. But I don't think so. The issue is that we haven't been marketing to recent graduates of TSU, Meharry, and Fisk. And so what has been happening is, for a large number of them, they're graduating and they're leaving. Number one, because it's not just our tight-knit community and what we've been doing. Yeah, we have access and we have friends at these places, but the city has to come in on this as well because they're the ones that attract people. So who are you attracting, right? And so if you attract the graduates and want them to stay here, then there's a certain level of engagement that is required from people who would benefit from recent graduates and African American professionals and black professionals to stay here and move in communities like North Nashville. So yes, we can do our talking and we can advocate for them to stay in the community that they've been educated, by, but also it supersedes our relationships, and it goes to the city, the state, right? Making sure that people know that they're welcome here and they can stay here, but being treated equitably, right? And they have access to mortgages that allow them to stay in North Nashville, because that's why we're hemorrhaging community members, because nobody can afford to stay here. Nobody can, if one little thing happens, you have to move. So how do we combat that? And I think it goes beyond just if you're a recent college graduate. How do you stay in North Nashville and you're black, right? We're trying to figure that out. And so I wouldn't call that gentrification if someone who is a recent graduate moves to North Nashville. But I will say that Rashida was right. Like if we don't do something and either pool our money together, think of creative ways for people to own homes or to be planted in North Nashville, then all we will see is more gentrification. So the efforts have to be intentional, and we have to have people who are dedicated and working towards Black home ownership on all economic levels. And so if we do that, then we'll be able to save our culture, save the history and the uniqueness of North Nashville. Because North Nashville will not work without the historical culture that we have. Now, what we do want to heal from is the historical trauma, but I'll let Rashida talk about that.
Okay, so first, that is not gentrification by the definition of gentrification, and by the impact that actual gentrification has on communities, because when we buy up our own blocks and when we own our own communities, we tend to do right by the community. Gentrifiers come in, they cause more harm, they push people out, and a lot of times they don't even know, because it's the developers who don't even live in Nashville who are building these homes. And so a lot of more economically advanced white folks come into our community, and a lot of times they don't even know what gentrification means or any of those things. I am thinking something, again, like a little bit different, and this is something that we don't talk about, which is reparations and the importance of reparations, whether it be on a local level, a state level, or a federal level, that, you know, people who are descendants of enslaved Africans really are already owed by this country a different level of restoration, a financial restoration, because if we had reparations, if there was a way, like reparations could be the land. Like, who are these people who are displaced when Interstate 40 was run through the North Nashville community, when those over 150 businesses had to shut down, where the government used eminent domain and seized their properties? Like, if we even don't just look at everybody who is a descendant of slavery and who lived originally in Nashville, and those people get reparations, let's just look at what was taken from those people in that time period. Those people who are directly impacted by I-40 coming through. You know, it's always left up to Black folks to figure out what to do to overcome the oppression that's been put on us. It is not ever, you know, the initiation of our government or of white people who benefited from our demise in that community to figure things out. And really, at this point, I am exhausted with it, because it's not on me to figure these things out. And so, you know, if we are really talking about justice in design and the intentionality of oppression, then let's just look at, you know, if we're gonna run a campaign, if we're gonna push, if we're gonna agitate, if we're gonna advocate, then let's look at and see, who are the names, who are the families? Because I know several who can tell stories about the houses that they grew up in that they lost because of that. Let's just restore them and make sure that they have land in North Nashville. If we did that, then that would be the beginning, I think, of doing true justice to people who have been disenfranchised in North Nashville.
I think that's an excellent and tangible point, because I think a lot of times people can get overwhelmed, and especially when anybody's asking anything of the government. You know, I think that there's a lot of roadblocks, and the conversation doesn't even get to be adequately started. So I think we had one question coming through, but I just wanted to also kind of see if there's any ways we could strategize on finding that tangible information, and then being able in us together, the private sector, people over here that are having money and investing, if they're able to make that reparation in one way or another where it does transfer equity and does give opportunities where it was lost, and being able to acknowledge specific people, because I know what you're talking about, and I started working over here 10 years ago, and I met people that are alive now that walked over to their home when they were a child and to have a chain link fence in front of it because it was going to be bulldozed for the interstate. So it's just something that is incredible to me that hasn't been addressed, and I don't have the patience to wait for the government to do it, even if they should. So I'm not sure if that's plausible, but it is something that worth discussing on a local level of can those reparations
That's a big number.
be made.
I can do the math. I can do the math in my head of what that number is with
There's
inflation.
always a start. There's always a
It's a big
start.
number.
I mean, if there's literally, you look on, I have a map that shows before the interstate went in, and it shows exactly how many acres were torn down, and it shows those properties. There's record of who owned those properties, and you find the descendants. It's actually not rocket science, so maybe it's something.
I think part of the campaign, if we do something around what we're talking about, getting together and doing this, and like, is really doing exactly what we're shooting, I'll calculate the number. You give me the number of land and people and businesses, I'll give you the economic impact that did with inflation. It'll take me 10 minutes to count. And that we start with that number. Here's what was lost. You've heard some of the statistic. Racism has cost the country $10 trillion because of racism. In that is this number, okay? And so that's what we're talking about, saying, look, if you come over, you need to know this is what's been taken from these people in this community. And if you come over, you got to figure out a way to get it back to them. So,
and there's also the effects of that are continuously happening, and figuring out how to stop the bleeding with that. Because what I've dealt with a lot since I've lived over here personally with my neighbors, and trying to figure out, even starting a campaign to keep them from selling their homes. There are people that voluntarily sell their homes, and a majority of the time they will have inherited the property and have multiple siblings that can't agree on how to take over the property, and maybe their mother or their father passes away. And so that's something that's happened over and over again, that it could be addressed to be able to provide resources like Jeff knows, and other people, to be able to counsel these families and prevent them realizing their gain, their asset, and preventing them from selling it. So I think that's another thing that I've come across, and I think we have one more question. I guess if there are any U.S. cities that have endeavored to make reparations for redlining and interstate construction that you guys know of, that would be used as an example, or something that you would reference that has or has not been successful?
I have no idea.
I have no idea.
I know Dr. Claude Anderson talks about community reparations, right? And so giving back to the community so the community can be better. And it's ways that we can do that, where folk who are involved in the community and are essentially leading the community informs that work, informs what that looks like. It should probably be looked at more. And that is could be one of the options, not only giving it to the individual families that it was taken from those that land, but also putting some of those some of the money back into the community, so the entire community can benefit from
So
it.
giving it to the organizations like Magruder Center and Giddings Army, who know the community and are able to strategize on making sure, working with people like Jeff Magruder, and making sure the families know what to do with even having that additional funds, because that's a huge deal. It's something that was taken away and wasn't ever really like informed, that knowledge was taken away, building up, knowing how to build wealth as a family, it's all tied into that.
And so, and it was the property and everything was taken from the individual family, but the community suffered, right? So it just wasn't that family suffering, it was also the community that was significantly hurt by this thing that happened, right? By this interstate ripping through a vibrant corridor of the African American community. So not only should we repair what was lost to the individual families, but also to the community that suffered greatly.
I agree, and you know, the personal level, and then like I said, you know, developers can stay out and figure out creative ways to invest with organizations so that, again, we are doing this work ourselves.
Autonomously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Write a check.
Write a check.
Go away.
Teach some skills. You know, share knowledge. share
Share
resources.
knowledge, share power.
Yeah.
I'm a big advocate on, you know, if you have power, that's something that you can also share.
Yeah.
Right? Because that could benefit, you know, people, organizations, communities, if you share some of the power that you have.
Yeah. Sometimes when it comes to scale, I mean, when big deals or institutional buildings, I mean, sometimes an outside group is helpful because of capital and you need them, but there's a way to structure things legally to where the control is still to the people that it's being built on top of. And so, I mean, you can do anything legally. It's not about the money, it's about the control of the asset that makes it of the community. And so when we say developers, we don't want y'all to come, it means you can bring some money, but we got to run it.
Yeah.
We got to tell you what to do with it. And that's how it has to be over here for things to look the way they need to look.
Because it's really what needs to happen. If there needs to be like essentially a relay where you're, you know, there's wealth that's been able to be built up over hundreds of years. That didn't just come with money. That was knowledge. That was resources. That was connections. That was networks.
Right.
So really, like, that's needed. The communication to be able to get those skills is needed, but the autonomy is what needs to be given as well with that.
Yeah, and they can participate in the returns on it, but it's the control. That's what it is. It's the control of the asset. That's what we're really trying to get back over here. It's control what's underneath the ground and on top of the ground here. So, yeah.
Would you say there's enough to go around for everybody?
Definitely. I think we're talking about the organized approach. I mean, this is the team. I mean, we've been doing the work. I mean, it's about to start. We know what to do. We get our heads together. We'll figure out the plan and execute. It's happening. I mean, I have a lot of faith in the next 10 years and what it's going to look like. I'm smiling cheek to cheek because I already see it. And so we ain't playing no games. We are not playing.
Well, thank you so much, you guys. That was awesome. And this is, again, thank you for tuning in, everybody. And make sure you check out everybody's information and website. If there's a couple handouts for you to download to get more information. And then also just go to each of the websites to keep up with up-to-date information. You can go to budbuilds.com and we'll have a page where you can get all this information as well and keep up. So thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody. And don't forget about the art show as well that we mentioned earlier. You can see the QR code for that in the handouts.
Yes, please. So. There's 2 studios in 1 gallery. The gallery is a current show of Amari Booker's that's at the Black Box Gallery at the local distro, and then there's 2 studio visits with Marlo Savon and Alex Lockwood, so please check those out. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, guys.